during times in our lives where it feels like everything is just crumbling down around us, when the things that you used to rely on as a sense of stability and safety, maybe a sense of who you are in the world, they just kind of. There are two things that make these times extra challenging. One of them is having this question of, why? Why is this even happening to me? And worrying that it was all for nothing. Like, it's pointless. It's just happening to you, that you're just a victim of something completely random and unfortunate. And then the second thing is trying to go through it feeling alone. Maybe you have people in your life, but they don't necessarily understand what you're going through. I wanted to create this episode today in the hopes that I could help a little bit with both of those things. Number one, giving you a sense of perspective, an elevated perspective, maybe even a mythic perspective that can help make sense of what is going on right now and help you activate a different level of strength and resilience, trust, faith, and maybe even hope. And I also am hoping that because I'm here with you as someone who has been through these really scary times, way too many times to count, and who regularly guides people through what I would call dark nights of the soul and times of collapse, hopefully you feel like there is someone who gets it, who is not going to reduce this and be like, oh, just suck it up. It's okay. You'll be fine. Because you get this sense that there is something more to what is playing out. This is not as simple as, oh, I just need to sort out my work situation, or I just need to find new friends, or I just need to find a new place to live. When these times of collapse and uncertainty happen, it can feel like who we are stops making sense. And it can start to feel really scary to navigate the world because you're like, but hang on, nothing feels the same anymore. I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you will see that there is a well of strength inside of you, that when you are locked in to a sense of purpose, you can step into a higher version of yourself, no longer feeling like you're just being knocked around with the waves and, like what happens when you're in the surf and you get knocked over by a wave and then you're trying to come back up and then another wave hits you and next thing you're on the sand. I don't know, obviously this will only be relatable if you're someone who's gone swimming at the beach. But my point is, when we fight what is happening to us in the ocean, it's like the ocean is working against us. But the most amazing thing happens when we pause and we realize, hang on, the waves have a natural flow. Maybe I should just allow that wave to carry me to shore instead of fighting it and swimming it against it and panicking. So essentially, that is what we're doing here. We are going to get into a space of surrender to what is playing out and trust that there is an actual wave that is trying to carry you somewhere. But the reason it feels very violent and very inconvenient and disruptive is because potentially we have had our sights set on a different trajectory. Maybe we were very attached to where we thought we were going, and it's trying to say, no, we need to go in this direction. I want to start by addressing a little bit of an elephant in the room, because there can be this really big question when it comes to meaning and what is the point of anything? And I take the stance that things mean whatever we choose them to mean. And that can be a really scary thing, because a lot of the time when we are overwhelmed, when we're feeling out of control, we are grasping for a sense of meaning, but we can look outside of us to find that meaning. But the first thing I really want you to do is understand that, yeah, what you're going through right now can be absolutely meaningless if that is the path you decide to choose. And that is fine. That's your prerogative. I mean, if that's where you want to go, probably don't bother watching the rest of this episode. But if you want it to have meaning, you are the one who gets to decide what kind of meaning this has. And so I am going to give you my perspectives and my takes, but ultimately what I want you to do is to really tune into what do you want this to mean in your bigger picture story, and know that you have the power to assign it that meaning. And then that meaning is the source of strength that you will be able to access should you choose to. But without getting sort of too abstract, I want to first ground this in a perspective that is really to do with manifestation. And the idea that as we are going about our lives, and often as we're doing a lot of inner work, I don't know if you're drawn to this, there's a really good chance you're someone who has been on a personal development journey. Maybe you associate with having a healing journey that's going on. And what can happen while we're so focused on becoming better and healing and all of that is our standards for living start to change. We start to want things that are different to maybe what we wanted before we started that journey. Our desires, our vision for life, even if we haven't consciously changed those things, we have gone, you know what? I no longer want to be treated like this, or I believe I'm actually worth more than I've been getting paid, or I want friendships who make me feel this way, but right now they're all making me feel that way. And even though we haven't necessarily sat down and gone, wait, I want something different for my life, internally, there is this sense of dissatisfaction, of outgrowing of what we've been putting up with so far, things that maybe used to make us really happy. Like a lot of the stuff in your life, you may have been like, this is great. I've got on paper success, things are cruising along. And honestly, I was really just hoping I could hang in there for another year or so until I hit this goal, and then maybe I'll reassess. While our egos and our minds might have this idea of exactly how things can plan out, and like once we hit this certain mark, we're going to start doing these things. I believe that we have a higher version of ourselves, like our true selves. That are not limited by our ego, by our fear-based mind. I believe they actually are already tuned in to what is truly possible for us. And I believe we realize that there is more that we want. And what we're really doing is trying to negotiate our way through life and go, okay, I know I want more, but can we just please hang on to this stuff for the time being? Because it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. But energetically, you are already, you've far outgrown that. You are calling in something else. You no longer accept these standards internally, despite trying to put up with them externally. And I believe that when we start getting more intentional about that stuff that we're trying to call in, when we do start to tune into this sense of like, I want more happiness, like I want more joy, I want more pleasure, I want more abundance, what we're really starting to do is set intentions of what we want to manifest. And we start to have this tension created where we are like, okay, I'm trying to like move over in this direction and this is what I want now. And yet these other things are kind of weighing me down. I believe for us to manifest anything in our lives, and when I say manifest, I just mean make some sort of vision or intention real. When we get really clear on those things and we are like, okay, I want this, what needs to happen is the rest of our life sort of needs to adjust itself, rearrange itself so that we are now the version of ourselves who's ready to call in that next thing. And so there can be like an unconscious thing that's playing out where it's like there is already part of you that's calling in a new thing and has decided the old thing is no good. But then also when we're being very intentional about manifestation, and you may have said a few things, you may be like, oh, I would love to actually live in a place like this, or I would love to be earning a certain amount of money. Well, we're starting to align ourselves with that future thing. And there is part of us, at least on one level, that knows that the things that we are currently settling for, they are out of coherence with what it is that we actually want, with who we need to be to have those particular things. I also like the word coherence is one. I also like the idea of integrity. I see integrity as like structural integrity, but I also see integrity, and I also love the word impeccability. It's like where the things that we're thinking, the things that we're saying, the decisions we're making, the things that we're allowing from others, and the way that we're expressing ourselves in the world are all in alignment. Our insides match our outsides. When we are going through these periods of destruction, of collapse, of dissolve, whatever word feels right for you, we are being given a little helping hand. Whether it's coming from within, first of all, or the outside, or I personally believe it's a bit of a collaboration that we have with the universe. The things that are no longer in integrity, no longer allowing for that coherence with where we want to go and who we want to be, they start to lose their grip. They start to fall apart. Space is being made because we are actually ready to call in something new. The challenge is when it doesn't feel like we chose it, okay? The challenge is when it's like, but hang on, I was okay keeping this job for the next 12 months because I have savings goals. And once I have my savings, then I was going to launch the business. But perhaps, maybe, what if your higher self, a much more intelligent, elevated version of you, I'm saying intelligent, not like you're not smart, but I'm saying the part of you that sees all, what if they know that you are playing very small with this 12-month plan to then do this thing? And they're like, you know what? I think you're actually ready for a shakeup today. I think this is going to work out in your higher good. And it then starts to shake things up and things collapse around us. This is just one perspective to be considering. But now let's get mythic with this. I want you to imagine that your life, your entire journey on this planet is your hero's journey. And when I say hero, I don't mean that in terms of sex or gender. I'm just using that as an archetypal term. I believe we all go on our own hero's journeys in our lifetime. The point of this journey, though, unlike the very literal take on this, like the story of Star Wars or something where it's some horrible thing happens and then you have to go fight the bad guys and it's all happening outside of you, I believe our hero's journey, the point of it is that we are being called to go on this lifelong adventure to discover who we really are, to get to the point where we don't just know ourselves, but we accept and love ourselves fully, and we are able to express ourselves fully in the outside world. I mean, authentically. I mean, every single one of our gifts and our strengths is actually being put into practice. I believe it's a journey of going and discovering all of the parts of us that we lost, that were shoved down, that were exiled, that were ignored, that were rejected. All of those things that when growing up, we learned that we were too much or not enough. We go and we find all of them. We reclaim them as like it's actually more like a merry band of travelers. And we then as well discover all of these hidden gifts that have been in the shadows, that have just been ignored for the time being while we've been busy trying to perform this version of ourselves that we thought would be more acceptable. Now, that is the very big picture storyline. But I also believe it happens in a spiral path. I believe there's like a cyclical nature to this, where, to reference Shrek, the idea of like we're peeling back the layers of the onion. It's like we are not going to find all of this out in one little quest. We are going to keep going deeper every single time. And this cycle that happens is basically following this process of hearing the call to something new. So we can tie that to manifestation and the idea that it's like, okay, I actually think I want to call in better quality friends, or a job that really recognizes and values me. It could be anything like that. But every time we realize there's a next level that we want, we're hearing this call to go out on another quest. We then have to step into the unknown. We have to start to leave behind some of these old identities, these old beliefs and thoughts, old habits even. Sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's structures, jobs, things that made us feel safe, so that we can travel light and we can go on this journey into what I see as the underworld. So not just like some far out place, but what we're really doing is going deeper and deeper into ourselves to reclaim those parts of ourselves, so that when we make our return, we are even more equipped to live a full life, to actually be fully free. Because I truly believe that there are so many kinds of freedom, but one of the greatest freedoms is the freedom to actually be yourself. I know it sounds really cheesy, but it's like to know that your truest self has a place anywhere, that you feel safe in any room to be you. And then the ultimate for me anyway is to know that people value you and that will even pay you to be you. So this journey is playing out, and we go on many of these. And I believe that there are two really major points in the journey when these shakeups can occur. So the very first one can be when we're receiving the call, like the shakeup, the destruction, the disaster, oh no, I'm losing control. Oh no, all the things that I used to hold dear to me and that made me feel safe are slipping between your fingers. That is one way that we can receive the call. It's like, you've outgrown this, and whether you feel ready or not, it's time to go on your next quest. The other time that we can really experience this is when we're in the underworld. As we're doing this work and we're starting to reclaim our power and we're reclaiming our desires and getting clearer on what we want from life and what we will no longer put up with, like we're becoming very powerful beings in this journey, we can just energetically outgrow what has been going on for us, what used to fit us and used to feel like a great fit. And I personally have seen this play out so many times for me. And I know that one of the most helpful parts of my journey has been able to have this framework where I see what's playing out. I'm like, oh, well, actually, yeah, I did do that little bit of healing and I did reclaim this desire. And suddenly I realized I wasn't as happy as I was working with that kind of a client. And yep, now this thing is happening. And it just gives me a sense, again, of meaning, of understanding. Now, it's not about always drilling into exactly why, because we can get really too in our heads about this. We can get like, well, this thing happened and then this thing happened and this thing was playing out. And if I had done this or I hadn't done that, like at this point, obviously, if the destruction has already happened, we probably just need to get to a point of acceptance, not fighting the circumstances. But acceptance doesn't mean we have to just let go of meaning, go, oh, well, ish happens. It can also be like, okay, this happened and it's really uncomfortable and I'm not enjoying this right now. However, maybe I was being called to something new, and maybe it is because I'm reclaiming my power that I can no longer put up with these standards of operating in relationship or in my work. So we've been in the sort of conceptual world for the time being, and I want to get really practical in terms of action steps and how to navigate these kinds of times in a second. But for now, I do want to pose the question because sometimes it's a little bit hard. Like our egos will go, no, I didn't want this at all. Of course, this is just happening to me, blah, 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 blah. And like we can get very defensive and we shut ourselves down from curiosity and learning and seeing how this could be for our higher good. So rather than me saying, oh, this absolutely happened to you for a reason, you wanted this, I'm not going to do that. I don't know you. What I'm going to say is imagine if there was a reason, like if there was a reason that you might have energetically outgrown any of these things that are crumbling, what might those reasons be? Like, where might there have been some settling, some awareness that you weren't actually happy, but you've been putting up with way too much for way too long, and maybe you have been sort of given a gift even though it's in a really inconvenient package? I'll leave that up to you. Feel free if you've got any sort of aha moments or you want to sort of call yourself out or confess anything in the comments. I would love to hear from you. But now let's talk some practicalities because this is not an easy time. When these things are seemingly happening to us and we weren't prepared for it, and it's putting us in all sorts of instability and uncertainty and potentially a sense of danger of like, oh my God, am I going to be able to survive this? Like, how am I going to navigate this? I'm not equipped. It can do a number on our nervous systems. And like I said, one of the other challenging things is if you don't feel like you have the right support systems around you during these times, because sometimes the thing that's crumbling is the support system that you've relied on. So I, again, have been through too many of these to count. Okay. And when I say that, I mean, one of my first really big doozies was in my early 20s. And I managed in 12 months to go through a bankruptcy, a divorce, and a near-death experience, like in the ICU. And I also do tend to work with a lot of people who are in threshold moments who are like, I am stuck between the old and the new, and I don't know how I'm going to do this. So let's just say I've had a bit of practice. I've had a bit of time to really understand what we need during these times. And we'll start at the most mundane, practical level. And when I say mundane, I just mean like in the everyday world, the steps that we need to take. The first thing that we need to do is address our safety. What do you need in terms of finances? What do you need in terms of living situation? Like, what are the absolute base level, like thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? The first thing we need to do, thinking about our nervous systems and the fact that we're all animals, like we need to know that we're not about to be eaten by lions. So what needs to happen in terms of that? Because it can be very challenging to jump straight to trying to solve the bigger picture, longer term challenges during these times. But often what is going to get us through this immediate period is going to be more about just needing to find a life jacket and less about finding, an ark, Noah's Ark. So for you, what are those absolute essential things? And then in terms of a support system, who do you have? And I've honestly found that one thing is to have who we need around us. The other thing is to think about who we don't need around us, because we all have relationships that are more testing, that are the kind that tend to take more from us, that where we're just pouring in and we're not really getting back. And we have to get a little bit selfish during these times, because these are not normal times. You really need to think about putting on your own oxygen mask. And if you know there are people who keep taking your oxygen, well, then how can you set some healthy boundaries during this time to make sure you really look after yourself? Adjust some expectations, lock down your calendar, say no a lot more, because you really need to acknowledge just how challenging this time is. And just saying, oh, I just need to be able to get on with my life and I'm being dramatic, that is not helpful. Okay, judgment is not helpful. What we need right now more than anything, other than the absolute safety needs, is self-compassion. Really go, okay, if this was happening to somebody else, someone you love dearly, would you tell them to suck it up? Would you tell them to stick with their normal routines? Would you be like, oh my God, you're being dramatic? Like, probably not. So can you maybe lend yourself some of the compassion and patience that you tend to lend the other people you love in your life? Once we're out of that, okay, what am I surrounding myself with? How am I going to keep a roof over my head? That kind of stuff. Then what we do want to start doing is connecting to a North Star, getting a little bit clearer on, okay, if this is crumbling because I'm moving away from something that I no longer want, what is it I actually want? I do think it's a lot easier to know what we don't want often, like especially during these times. But reconnecting with visioning and our ability to tap into something that we're trying to move towards can be a little bit more challenging. And I don't want you to think that this is about goal setting and having some plan for your life. It's more like, okay, what are those non-negotiable standards, like those baselines that have been increased? Like, I want to feel this way. I want people around me who treat me like this. I know that I want to be able to earn a certain amount of money, but it's always going to be connected to the why. Like, what is it that you want to be experiencing? Like, what are those keywords? I want to live a life that is full of this, and that. And it can be really broad. But the main thing is, as long as it's connected to a feeling in your body, then you start to get better at knowing when you're trying to move towards the old that doesn't actually feel that way, that feels quite contractive. And then you're like, oh, no, okay, this is more expansive. And it's like, what's the game? It's getting cooler, getting warmer. That's kind of how we have to navigate these times. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second when we do the mythic perspective steps. Once we have a North Star, we want to commit to something. Again, not some rigid plan, not some goals, not something that you can't control, but it's like, okay, I am going to commit to taking some sort of steps so that I feel like I'm making progress, so that it gives me a sense of, like, not control, because we know we're not in control of anything, but I mean, we are in control of how we see the world, and we're in control of how we show up each day. And so having a commitment to start moving you in the right direction, especially because there can feel like this tension between just being okay and surviving this time and then starting to move towards something that you truly want. It might feel like two conflicting ideas, but they're actually not. You can absolutely start making those steps towards these things that represent that true vision, and you can be keeping a roof above your head in other ways. And as long as you have that North Star, it can also mean that short-term stuff that you need to do has that different sense of purpose and feels less like, oh my gosh, I've just gone backwards, like I've regressed. No, it's not regression. It's not going backwards. It's you doing what you need to. But it's less scary when you know that, okay, but I do have this other thing that I'm working towards, and here's how I'm going to take some steps towards that. I could literally spend hours going into more details about this kind of thing, but I do have other content related to that. If there's anything that I believe that will be helpful, just check the description below because I'll make sure I link some other episodes. But now let's talk about a mythic contemplation. And for this, I actually pulled some cards from my favorite archetypes deck because they have an inner journey pull, which is all about who you need to be activating, where your journey is set, and what is going to help you navigate this time, and then why, the underlying bigger picture mythic why for why you're going through this. So the Who card that I pulled is the Shadow, which is really interesting because I believe that this whole journey is about us actually uncovering our deepest desires, the things that we have been denying ourselves. And so the fact that this is about what needs activating at this time, it's like, okay, so number one, what are some things that I have been putting off, that I've been saying, oh, when I finally have this much money, this much time, whatever, I'm finally going to do this thing. Where have you just been putting off the actual life that you want to be living? And what are the things that maybe you let die in the past, like passions, dreams, things that used to bring you joy and pleasure as a kid, but then you just dropped one day because you had to grow up, you had to be an adult. These kinds of things give us huge glimmers in terms of that North Star and where you're actually wanting to move next. So we need to look at that. The other place that it can be really helpful to look at our shadow in order to find our vision and our true desires is through things like envy and jealousy and being triggered. So when you look in the outside world and you're like, oh yeah, well, lucky for them because they've got that, or no. Who are you looking at and going, yeah, well, be nice if I could have that, wouldn't it? Or where you're just jealous, or you're comparing yourself and you're like, oh, I should be there by now. Anytime we're a bit too bothered by someone else's success or the way they're living their life, that can give us so many clues as to what we actually want. But another one that is really powerful that can be overlooked is where we get resentful about how other people are operating in the world, including even just as simple as like people who are setting boundaries really strongly. I know I once had, I think it was a coach that I had, and I got really triggered about how unavailable they were. And now it was a whole other story because they'd actually said they were available and then they weren't. But I got unnaturally bothered by this. I was like, how dare they not be available for me? Why are they not replying to my messages? And the mirror that it held up to me was, oh, I'm resentful because I am always available to clients. I have no healthy boundaries here and I'm feeling depleted and resentful. So that gave me a clue of some of the new standards that I needed to set for myself. Instead of being bothered by how my coach had been operating, I mean, I also fired them because there's a whole other story attached to that. But my point is, after that, I took action and went, okay, if I'm that bothered, I need to do something. So I am raising my standard. So for you, is there anyone that you look at and you go, oh, how dare they? Or who do they think they are? Can't believe they don't do this or they do this. Well, there's probably a clue that there's like a repressed desire in there of yours that needs to be acknowledged and integrated, and then you are going to become so much more happy. That can also help us understand what repressed parts of you are playing into this old structure that's been collapsing. Like if it was a job or if it was clients or it was relationships, what were the things that you were holding back and not allowing, like your authentic desires and your needs to express yourself? Where were you repressing yourself in order to keep the peace, in order to stay in that relationship or job or situation? The where that you got is the forest. I was like, of course, literally in my Mythic journey offering, the very first thing when someone accepts the call, the first stop in that journey is the dark forest, because the dark forest it's the first place we get lost. Because as soon as things start to collapse, and this is also in alchemy as well, there is the first stage of the alchemical process, which is about the process of individuation, is darkening. blackening. And it's about where everything goes dark and starts to sort of decompose. And you're left going, okay, so who am I? Where am I? What's going on? So we can freak out when we end up in the dark forest, because the dark forest is any time we just don't know where we're going. But the funny thing is, the dark forest is like the most authentic place that we can be, because the truth is none of us really know where we're going. We all get very attached to where we think we're going, where we think we should be. All these plans that we make where we're kidding ourselves as if we have control over every single variable and we can guarantee that we're going to end up in a certain place by a certain time. But these are our ego's constructions and attachments. When we're in the dark forest, it's very humbling because we have to admit, oh, I don't know where I am. I don't even seem to have a source of light right now. I don't know how I'm going to get out of here, and I'm scared. And so it brings us back to the baseline, like of just needing to take care of the absolute essentials. But the dark forest, where we can see it as really scary and probably full of monsters, and it's this dangerous place because where's the path? And what if I won't survive? What if I won't have the warmth and the light that I need? Once we can allow ourselves to adjust to the dark, like our eyes adjust and we start to see things differently. And we will start to realize that it's a very enchanted, magical forest full of support for us, like our guides, our sparks of inspiration. Like there is so much to be found in that forest. But as long as we're just trying to run out of there as quickly as possible, we're going to tire ourselves. We're going to get further lost because we'll be in the middle of it instead of moving towards the outside again. Basically, we need to surrender to the fact that we are in the dark right now, and that is okay. It feels terrible and it feels like the end of the world, but it's not. Think about us as babies in the womb. We literally are birthed from darkness. Darkness is the beginning. Darkness is magic and potential. So what you're going through right now is bringing you back to the beginning of infinite potential, where you get to start rewriting your story, where it clearly wasn't all rainbows and butterflies beforehand. You can convince yourself that you were totally fine with how it was going. But if you're honest, do you really believe that if things continued the way they were, you would have ever gotten to live the life that you really want to live? Because keeping in mind, the life we want to live is about who we're able to express ourselves as. And so as long as part of you was trapped away and wasn't allowed to exist and express fully, well, then you were never going to actually experience that liberation and that empowerment. The what that you got is the most perplexing card. I don't know if it's ever going to go into focus, but anyway, this is the riddle. This card always loves to troll me. Basically, the riddle is saying to you that as long as you are trying to solve this problem from a logical standpoint, like as if it's some mathematical equation that can be solved, you will stay confused and bamboozled. The riddle says you'll solve the riddle when you stop trying to solve the riddle. Essentially, it's saying there's not a problem to be solved. Yes, of course, there is the matter of your safety and your security and sustainability, and that's its own thing. You can handle that. That's not a problem. That is not a riddle. The riddle we see is, how the hell am I going to figure out where I'm going and how I'm going to sort my life out when I don't even know what I'm going to be doing next month, let alone next year or in 10 years' time. Anytime we're just in this panic of, oh no, I've lost control. So the riddle is saying to you, deal with what needs dealing with right now. I mean, I personally believe that whatever is happening in your present moment, like whatever is arising around you, the friction, the concern, the fears, the triggers, that is the work. Always. It's not the thing that you're worried about happening in a year's time. It's like as above, so below, as within, so without. Basically, whatever is playing out at this very moment has the ability to provide a mirror to you of the work that needs doing that will get you out of the dark forest and that will get you on your way, heading to the Emerald City. But if you are so focused on the future or agonizing over the past and living in regret, you are not in the present moment where all these very obvious signs are being placed in front of you. Like, this needs your attention. So stop trying to solve anything. You're not going to find anything that there is to be solved. All there is the now. Speaking of the now, you got, for the big picture purpose, why of all of this, you got the Kairos card. It's going to be really hard to see properly because it's not going to want to focus for me. But basically, there's a wolf's eye in the middle, and all around is like a kaleidoscope. Kairos is about activating mythic time. And this is very relevant to what's playing out because I think one of the biggest fears that can be activated when we go through something like this is we start to panic that we've now been thrown off schedule. Our lives have been thrown off schedule. It's like I had to plan. I was going to be here by this date and here by this date, and now it's ruined. I failed. It's too late. The Kairos card also talks about how when we are too caught in linear time, when we're living in the future or living in the past, like we're missing the fact that all that exists is now. The past is now fake because how do we have evidence that it ever existed? It's all just in our minds now. The future certainly doesn't exist. We can imagine it, but it's not real. Now is real, and that's it. So now is all you have in terms of how you are going to navigate whatever it is that you're going through. And I know for me, one of the hardest things for me to do is to slow down enough to drop into my body and acknowledge how I'm feeling. Somatic experiencing is one of the most powerful ways that we can actually understand what we need and what has been denied in the past, what has been repressed and not been allowed to be expressed. So I highly encourage you, how about we just take a moment now? I know, I'm going to just force it right now because I know how challenging it is to do it when you're not being prompted. Why don't we just take a moment and let's just sit and tune in to what is actually happening in your body. How does it feel right now? Because there is probably more than one feeling going on. I know for me, it's usually so complex. When things start to fall apart, there can be this mix of fear and overwhelm. There can be disappointment, frustration. There can be like a beating myself up. But there can also be like, oh, what's that? Relief. Oh, lightness. Okay, clearly this is not all bad. Oh, what? Excitement? Hope? Potential? We are a kaleidoscope of feelings, but as long as we're in our heads thinking about what comes next or judging what happened before, we cannot access those things. These things, our feelings, our emotions, are actually our compass for what needs to happen next. And our bodies are so much wiser than our minds, but we just don't give them the credit that they are deserved. So I'm excited for you because this Kairos card is about realizing that you have all the time you need. Mythic time means like time is flexible. We realize that in a moment we can experience everything we ever wanted. And if you have been living your life on a schedule, always looking at the clock, always looking at the calendar, always comparing your journey to someone else's, I'm supposed to be here by now, oh no, I'm behind, then what is happening right now is an opportunity, is an invitation to heal your relationship to time. And that's huge. Like I honestly believe, I think this is one of the biggest wounds that as humanity we carry is just this, we are prisoners of linear time. And when we can get rid of that, I mean, this is what a flow state is about. This is about unlocking creativity and absolute peace in the moment. So again, exciting times ahead and also challenging times ahead. And that is the beautiful mess that is life. But I hope you feel a little less alone in this. I hope this has provided some perspective because when we are very low in the mud, it can be really difficult to see anything except panic. So hopefully this gave you a moment to raise out of the mud and see things a little bit clearer. You may want to rewatch this. You may want to spend some time in contemplation and doing some journaling. But if you want to share anything about what's going on and just get anything off your chest, please leave me a comment. Thank you for being here and trusting this process. And I look forward to chatting with you on the next one. Bye for now.